Well, hello everyone. Is anybody excited to be in the house of the Lord tonight? We are so grateful. This is going to be an incredible night, and I just wanted to say thank you to all the staff and the hosts that have spent the last 2 days making this house ready. It's been an incredible time. We are so grateful. You know, in the times we're living, it's so important to lean in and to focus on the things that really matter, and that's what we're going to do tonight. As One Church Home, we are so grateful, so humbled, and so honored to get to host a night like this. Amir and Steve are men that I see like giants, and I just couldn't be more excited to have them here tonight to share with us about just a plethora of different things. And so, would you stand to your feet and honor two great men of God, Amir Surfati and Pastor Steve Berger, as they come and share with us tonight.
Thank you very much.
That was weak. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There you go. Well, it's good to see everybody out here tonight. Thank you for coming, and I'm quite sure that we're going to have a great time tonight, and that a whole bunch of truth is going to go out that you're not going to hear from very many places besides right here. We don't have the market on truth, but we surely have the ability to communicate truth that other people aren't communicating. And the reason we can do that uniquely tonight is because we have our dear friend Amir with us. So one more time, just to make him feel welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we're going to have a conversation tonight. We have a general plan of where we're going to go, but you never know what might happen, and see how much time that we have. So let's just jump right in right away, Amir, and let's start with the ceasefire, Gaza, Lebanon. Take it. Give us some thoughts.
Okay.
What do you think about the ceasefire?
Well, you know, nobody likes wars, but nobody wants to finish the war before it should be finished. Or else, what's the point of starting it to begin with? And I had my share of criticism online on the terms that we had in Lebanon, which heavily relied on the Lebanese military doing our job of cleaning up Hezbollah from the south, because from what I know, there's the military in Lebanon is heavily compromised by Hezbollah. There's so many Hezbollah people that are receiving information from high officials in the Lebanese army. So one must be very cautious, you know. You don't want to, you know, roll into a place that planned. You have to understand, we have no problem with the Lebanese people. Never had, by the way. We wish we could live in peace with Lebanon because I believe it's one of the most beautiful countries in the Middle East and in the world. I just think that it has been taken hostage by Iran and by Iran's proxies. And so what happened is, Lebanon became an entity that has two military wings, the official military and Hezbollah. And in a very weird way, Hezbollah was much stronger than the military itself. And so what happened is that Israel, once we rolled in, and again, we didn't even want that war. October 8th, a day after Hamas started, Hezbollah started shooting. I mean, out of the blue, without any provocation, without anything. So what happened is Israel decided that once things are once it's the right time, we're going to have to move our forces from Gaza up north and roll in and clean up all the south from everything that was there. And apparently what was there was supposed to was supposed to be 10 times worse than October 7th if they executed what they planned. And we found insane amount of weapon, ammunition, tunnels, infrastructures, rocket launchers, almost every other house in some of the villages. And it's funny because there is one village that is Christian, there was nothing there. And we never touched it. But you could clearly see that the more Shiites in the village, the more sympathy they had towards Hezbollah, and the more they allowed Hezbollah to use their homes, and they used their city hall and schools and mosques and all of that. And so I criticize Israel for pulling out within 60 days. But I think that that was the catalyst for the fall of the Assad regime, because Hezbollah basically agreed to a ceasefire he would have never agreed to if it was strong. And also, we can also see right now that that ceasefire had been extended. So they are still letting us do what we need to do as far as routing all the infrastructure of Hezbollah there. Now, again, that's Lebanon, and we're working there right now as we speak. In Gaza, it's a bit more complicated, because Gaza is not Lebanon. You don't have in Gaza people that wants to live in peace with us. You don't have a country that is developed, that has, infrastructure. You have their people that their entire existence depends on the annihilation of Israel. And so in Gaza, the problem is, unlike with Lebanon, that they're holding, at least when we arrived in the ceasefire, they were holding 100 hostages, of which close to 40 are, actually close to 50 are not alive. We knew that every day that passes will risk the life of those that are still alive. And eventually we will get them, but dead. So we waited to the right moment, and under heavy pressure of the US government and others, we decided to go for a ceasefire that has two phases. First phase lasts 42 days, in which, in return to the release of 33 hostages, we are going to release more than 2,000 terrorists. Some of them with blood on their hands, that they need to sit in jail for 500 years for what they did. Now, of the 33, 25 are alive. 8 are dead. They would not tell us who is dead and who is alive. So it's not until the end of the 42nd day that we will for sure know who amongst the 33 was alive and who's dead. It didn't start well to begin with, because the categories by which we demanded the release of those 33 were first women and children, and then the female observers from the surveillance military base that was captured, and then people between 50 and 85 years old, and then anyone that is younger but is sick or wounded. And so you would expect the women and the children to be first. Where tomorrow we're going to have 2 more females and 1 male already, which means we're already moving to the category of the males without getting a mother and 2 children. And so Israel is bracing for some very tough news in the next week or so, and that's it.
Take a minute and talk about the mother and the 2 children and the father, the family.
Yes, so Shiri, Bibas, Kfir and Ariel, the children, and Yarden, the husband, They were all abducted, obviously, on October 7th, but they were separated. And the husband was taken elsewhere while the mom and the children were held in the hands of a different organization. You have to understand, it's not only Hamas. There's about a dozen murderous organizations that literally entered, and it was like shopping. Everyone took whatever he could, knowing that one day it will pay off. And Shiri and her 2 kids were held in the hands of some other organization. And starting from November already, they were afraid that Israel is going to invade into the city of Gaza. And so they already said that Shiri and the kids are dead. I'm talking about Hamas said that. And then they released a couple months later a video of the father acknowledging that his wife and children were dead, because that's what they told him to say on camera. So as far as Hamas is concerned, we already told you they're dead. So you shouldn't be surprised. However, at least 2 times we saw that they announced months ago that somebody's dead, and he ended up being alive. Tomorrow they're going to release an 80-year-old man called Gadi Moses. He was considered dead. We thought he's dead, and he's alive. Another one of the female observants, we thought she's dead, and she is alive also. So my point is, you really don't know for 100% until you get your people, whether alive or dead. But
Hamas isn't always telling the truth.
I don't think they're in the habit of telling the truth. I think that this is psychological warfare to torture people, torture the families, torture the nation, torture the leader. But I think it will backfire on them, because at the end of the 42 days, we must start phase 2. And phase 2 is they have to release everyone else in exchange for the end of the war. And if you think that we're going to get a coffin of a mother and 2 coffins of 2 children, and we will say, yes, sure, let's finish the war, you can kiss that thought goodbye. I mean, we will be so enraged. If they were smart, they would have released them first in coffins, just so by the end, only living hostages would come and the people would be, a bit more happy. But it's a mind game of psychopaths. You will never be able to understand how they think, because we don't think like that. Normal people don't think like that. They are not normal people. It's demon-possessed people, and if we don't understand that, we don't understand anything about them.
Yeah. It's as a pastor and just as someone that loves God and is doing their best to follow Jesus, when I walked through the Nova Festival, where everything went down, not all of it, but a lot of it on October 7th, and saw all of the memorials that were set up, all of the pictures of the beautiful people, and then went into the Moshav, the villages that were assaulted, and to see what Hamas and their partners did. It was the only time in my life, I don't say this slightly, but I say this so that you understand what we're dealing with here. It was the only time in my life where I said, these people are actual animals. I've never called a human being an animal before. You cannot do what they did apart from being completely turned over to demonic forces. You cannot do. It is so far beyond any kind of normal warfare, right? War by itself is bad enough. Geneva Convention war is bad enough by itself. But when you see, and I'm not even going to discuss what I saw, But when you look at it and you stand in the homes knowing what took place right where you're standing, it's unbelievable. They literally know no bounds in terms of their psychological warfare or their physical attacks.
I think calling them animals is insulting the animals. Because if you really think about it, animals don't torture one another. They either kill in order to, because there's there's a danger, or they want to eat the other, because that's how it is. But what they did, I mean, there are several cases where it's above and beyond anything anyone has ever seen. I mean, to have a whole family sitting around a table and to slowly chop pieces of each and every one of them while they're still alive. And when we got there, it's too late. They all bled to death. But they were all sitting. One without an arm, one without a foot, one without breast, one without a nose. You don't do such things. They did it. The amount of heads, the amount of male genitals that were spread in the Nova Festival. There is no battle in the history of planet Earth where things like that were done. And even if there was, it was a battle, not invasion into homes of people and doing that to them. So we're not even post-traumatic nation. This nation is going through right now a trauma that it'll take us years to recover from. But one thing for sure, we're not going to allow them to stay beyond our border. This we know. And any prime minister that will sign on a piece of paper that will leave them in power will not stay in power a second longer.
Thank God.
And that's why Netanyahu is, he received assurances from the US government that at the end of the 42 days, if Hamas is not disarming, stepping down from power, surrendering, we go in and finish the job. So we have that assurance. So the war is not over. To go back to your question, the war is not over in Gaza. There's a ceasefire, 42 days. We're going to get as many as we can back. Unfortunately, at least 25 to 30 living hostages will still remain there when we resume war. We know that. But that's why we are releasing the sick, the wounded, the women, the children. We're doing whatever we can to get those first, with the hope that the rest that are still young and strong will be able to survive a few more months or weeks, whatever it is. You can imagine the thought of the parents of those that were not included in this deal, and the thoughts of the parents of the soldiers that were killed in Gaza in order to liberate parts of Gaza so Hamas will never come back there, and to see Hamas coming back there once again on those white pickup trucks, fully armed, it's heartbreaking. But wait, the story is not over yet. Yeah.
Sarah and I had the privilege, and we counted a privilege, to be able to meet with many of the parents who had lost loved ones on October 7th, both innocent people who were at the music festival and then soldiers and all of that. And I can't tell you, there was not a single parent that thought that we should stop, or that Israel should stop or slow down. Hamas needs to go completely, and their resolve, their strength for that. It's not like, no, let's back off. We don't want anybody else to be lost, and let's rescue whoever we can, and let's play nice.
Hamas is saying that out loud. We'll do it again. They don't hide it. They say it. We better take them for their words, because they already showed us that whatever they said before, they implemented. They're serious. And as you said, there is no way they can stay in power. But I'm going to add to it another thing. There's no way Gazans can stay in Gaza right now, because Gaza right now is uninhabitable. And if you really love them, or if you want to help them, the best thing you can do right now is to tell them you need to leave for a few years, because there is no way you can live like that. I mean, northern Gaza, north of the city of Gaza, is 90% demolished. The city of Gaza is 45% demolished. Rafah is 80% demolished. So there are some pockets that we may have not touched, but again, the infrastructure, there is no sewage, and there's no electricity, and there's no water, and there's nothing. So even in the places that are buildings are still standing. I mean, people 2 days ago started going up north. They found out that there's nothing to go back to, turn around and went back to their tents and encampments in the south, because there is nothing for them left in the north. So President Trump is the only world leader that is even braver than the Israelis to say the truth to the world and to the Palestinians. This won't work. And what he said is, we have to talk to the Egyptians, we have to talk to the Jordanians, we have to talk to others, and they have to, if they truly love them and want to help them, they need to take them, just like the Syrian refugees were taken by Turkey and by Jordan. Why would the Jordanians absorb and take care of Syrians and not Palestinians, when 70 to 80% of Jordan is Palestinians? Why would
Don't say that too fast. Think about this. There are more Palestinians in Jordan than there are Jordanians.
Yeah.
That's reality.
Because if you ask me, 2 states are already there. Jordan is the Palestinian state already. But that's the point is, that tells you, when you see that the Egyptian president says no, and the Jordanian king says no, and the Albanian government is shaking, when you see that, you see their true colors. They don't care about the Palestinians. And for the last 75 years, 76 years, and more so since 1967, the only thing they care about the Palestinians is that they will suffer so Israel can be blamed. And so they were used as pawns, they were used as tools to attack Israel. But if, God forbid, we take care of the Palestinians, they'll be happy. If they'll be happy, who's going to come against Israel? Who is going to pose a threat to Israel? How can we keep Israel on suspense? And what will then stop Israel from becoming bigger and stronger? And that's the way to suppress us, by always making sure that there's daily problems coming from that area. And so I'm just telling you, we're watching, we live in phenomenal prophetic times in which we see shifts, tectonic shifts in the Middle East, that fits perfectly into Bible prophecy and speaks loud and clear about the imminence of our departure even.
Amir, before we get into talking about and kind of picking up where we just were with two-state solution and some of the things that we can unpack there, I want to go back for just a moment, back to Lebanon for a minute, because people need to understand what happened with the pagers and the walkie-talkies. Does anybody want to know about that tonight?
All right. So first of all, it's 2 operations that were basically combined into one. And you have to understand that 10 years ago, Israel already managed to understand the need of Hezbollah for two-way radio for walkie-talkies, and we already 10 years ago provided 16,000 pieces of walkie-talkies with explosive inside them. And for the last 10 years, I mean, we're talking about stuff that was waiting to be activated. But then we realized that many of them are not using it anymore, and there is a new method that they're looking for. And so 2 years ago, when we realized that they're shopping for something else, smaller and a bit more easy to carry, because when you walk with a walkie-talkie, everybody knows you're a terrorist. I mean, it's like walking with two bodyguards next to you. But when you have a pager, you can hide it, under your shirt, in your pants, And so what happened is that Israel detected that they are looking for something like that. And so we created immediately a fake company in Europe and we hired the same salesperson that worked for the original company in Taiwan that manufactures them. But then we realized we brought the original pagers that the Taiwanese make, and we realized we can't stuff enough explosive there to cause any damage. So in the Mossad headquarters in Tel Aviv area, we started testing what is the best way, what is the best size. And we came up with something a bit bulkier than the normal pager. And then we immediately went on in a campaign. There's a new pager, bigger, stronger, and better. And we managed to sell them those. And so now we have several operations going on at the same time. We just need to decide when is it that we pull the trigger on both and then basically expose it. And this is the moment when Netanyahu realized that it's time to take care of the north. We did enough in Gaza. We're at the point where it's unbearable anymore. We can't go on like that in northern Israel. This is the right time. We did not inform the American administration. Here I am in America, and the Americans are happy that we did not inform the Americans. I can guess who you voted for. But listen, some of you might not be happy.
Trump.
But listen, the problem is that we needed to find the right moment. And so we sent the message. And the message was actually a message that if you want to read it, you have to take it and press 2 buttons in order to read it. Now, that's the message. You understand? The explosive will explode regardless if you read the message or not. But if you're curious enough to read the message, then you might be able to bring children to the world, but you'll be blind. If you never bothered to read the message,
birth control.
And so within few minutes, simultaneously, thousands of pagers exploded all across Lebanon, some in Syria, and lo and behold, even the Iranian ambassador in Lebanon carried one of those pagers, which tells you how much he's involved with Hezbollah, because we shipped it to Hezbollah, not to the Iranians. And immediately they told everyone, get rid of your pagers, move to your walkie-talkies. So the next day, the 10-year-old operation came to fruition, and we pulled the trigger on the walkie-talkies. And this is when Hezbollah realized this is it. And then Netanyahu took off to speak in the UN. It was another interesting diversion operation because Nasrallah thought that if he's flying to America, there's no way he's planning anything. And so he invited all of his friends to the bunker to watch the speech of Netanyahu. Little did he knew that before the speech, Netanyahu gave the green light to destroy Nasrallah's bunker, and at the end of the speech, the bunker was destroyed. So the last thing Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, and all of his people saw, they were watching the Israeli prime minister on television. And then a few days later, when a successor was announced, his bunker was destroyed with all of the rest of them. And it was a shock and awe. It took them off balance, of course, but then came a aerial campaign that destroyed systematically most of Hezbollah weapon depots and rocket launchers and everything. And from being an organization that had 250,000 rockets, they have today around 30,000, which is still a lot, but over 80, close to 90% of their capabilities is gone. So that's Hezbollah. Now, make no mistake, Hezbollah was the biggest asset Iran had in the Middle East, the biggest. They have invested in Hezbollah billions of dollars. And so now you would assume that Hezbollah wants to rearm and recover. And then the Assad regime collapsed. And the one country that was supposed to be connecting Iran with Lebanon to smuggle more weapons is now gone, and Hezbollah is completely unable to reload, to rearm, and to recover. And it's a very weak organization right now compared to, and that is why we're able to do what we do in southern Lebanon, knowing that they will never shoot rockets again, because then even the 20,000 that are left will be gone. And so, you know, this is what we have in Lebanon. I think the Pager's operation is the largest targeted elimination, let's put it this way. Never in the history of planet Earth so many people paid for something that later on identified them as terrorists and kept them wounded for the rest of their life as terrorists. Very few died, by the way. We did not intend the explosive to be powerful enough to kill them because we didn't want collateral damage. We wanted them only to be, and we also wanted them to agree to a ceasefire. So they literally swamped and filled the hospitals to the point the hospitals couldn't take anymore. And so when a country understands that it cannot take care of its own people anymore, it's way more poised to agree to a ceasefire. And that's when the rebels in Syria realized if they sign a ceasefire, they must be crushed. And if they're crushed, it's our time to make a move. And this is it.
Yeah. Let's get back to some of the issues surrounding the two-state solution for just a moment. If there's ever been a phrase that has stuck in the hearts of people that sounds so doable, sounds so agreeable, and it's two-state solution.
Yeah.
Let's just have a two-state solution. Let's let them have their land, Israel, let's have our land, and let's everybody just get along. And people, like, you realize when Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005, Gaza was a test run for a two-state solution. Now, how did that work out?
We all know.
As soon as they got it, right? They're tearing down all of the greenhouses. Everything that Israel had in Gaza, they immediately started tearing it apart.
Yeah.
The two-state solution is no solution.
Well, as I said, there is already a two-state solution. It was already achieved in the 1920s. See, listen to me, the original offer of the British government to the Jewish people for a state was Jordan and Israel combined. I don't know if you know that. That was Palestine. Palestine was not just left. Palestine was right and left. It's just that the one on the right was also called Transjordan because it's beyond the Jordan River, okay? So there is the West Bank on the west, and there is the Transjordan on the right. But all of it was called Palestine. So when the Balfour Declaration in 1917 was given, and it says there that the government of Her Majesty sees in a benevolent eye the establishment of a homeland for the Jewish people in Palestine. In 1917, it meant both Jordan and Israel of today. That was Palestine. And when later on the British changed their mind and decided to give more than 2/3 of it to the Hashemite family because the Ibn Saud family kicked them out of the Hijaz and took over Mecca and Medina. See, Mecca and Medina in Saudi Arabia were not controlled by the Saudis. They were controlled by the Hashemite family, which is now the family that rules Jordan. And that made the Hashemites nomads, and the Hashemites helped the British to win the war against the Ottoman Empire. As a reward, they gave them Transjordan. And in reality, as we talked about, this is where most of the Palestinians are. So if you ask me, there is already a two-state solution. It has been there forever. I don't see any other option. And I will tell you this. The reason why I don't see any other option is not because I don't want, it's because they don't want. What is the phrase that you are hearing in every university right now? As they chant in the streets of New York, of Chicago, of London and Paris, what is it that they chant? From the river to the sea, from the river Jordan to the sea, Palestine will be free. They don't want to live next to us. They want to live instead of us. They never ever wanted a two-state solution to begin with. By the way, it's something that the Western world is trying to enforce and on the Palestinians. The Palestinians don't want two-state solution. Ask any Palestinian, where do you want to live? What is the solution? He'll tell you. It might take a month, it might take 10 years, it might take 100 years, but we'll kick the Jews out of here eventually, because this is our land. That's the solution they have in mind. And so, if you ask me, the only two-state solution that works is that has been already implemented in the 1920s. And it's still going on. Speaking about Judea and Samaria, this is the ancestral homeland of the Jewish people. All of the stories of Genesis of our ancestors, of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, took place right there. And to say that it's not ours, to call us occupiers of our own land, to go to every archaeological site and to find in every archaeological site remains of Jewish presence from the first temple period, from the second temple period, from way before Islam was even born. And then you ask them, okay, so if you exist as a nation for so long, so who was your first president? They can't tell you. Who was your first prime minister? They can't tell you. Because the whole Palestinian hoax began in the mid-1960s when the KGB appointed Yasser Arafat to run the biggest deception drill in the history of planet Earth. is creating something that never existed and claiming that it has been there forever. Now, you can fool some people with a certain level of IQ, but you cannot fool archaeologists, and you cannot fool historians, and you cannot fool any of those people. We know who was there. I don't know if you know that, but in the 1920s, the Muslims themselves issued books saying that the Temple Mount is where Solomon's temple used to stand. They say that, not we. Ask them now, they'll say we never said that. I have it. Because in the 60s, everything changed. And nobody bothers to check and to go back and see. This is a deception that is sweeping through the whole world right now. Right. And isn't it interesting? All the chants and all the rallies, anti-Israel rallies and pro-Hamas rallies started when? October 7th. Before we even began to retaliate. It was all well orchestrated, well planned, well designed. That's what it was. So two-state solution, I'm for it. It's there. It has been implemented already. We can continue to live like that.
But be clear, when you're saying two-state
I'm
solution.
talking about Jordan and Israel.
Exactly.
I'm not talking about another Palestine.
Within Israel.
There is no such thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, we tried it. It's not working.
Didn't work.
No.
I want to talk in a few minutes. We'll get to the warnings from the scriptures about dividing the land. We'll get there in a minute. In Israel, you need to understand that the left in Israel it's the same mindset as the left here in America. I'm not trying to simplify it, but you will at least understand what I mean by that. It is the same mindset, it's the same philosophy. The left is the left, the right is the right, the conservatives are the conservatives. So in Israel, when I make this comment, I'm not saying everybody is for it, but I will tell you, in Israel, there is a movement. I was there personally, which I told my daughter Heather when I called from Israel. I said, I think I saw history being made today. I think the day's going to come when I say I was at the meeting when it happened. There is movement in Israel for Israel one state. Being very clear, Israel is one state. There is no two-state. There never will be two-state. Gaza's done. Hamas is done. Israel's one state. There is no more West Bank. There is now Judea and Samaria, again, our ancient homeland. So back in October, I was in a meeting with Ambassador David Friedman in Jerusalem, members of the Knesset, members of the administration, all talking very, very openly and very boldly about Israel one state. It was unreal to sit there and to hear the conversations that were being had. Someone from the administration got up and said, when one state happens, and we don't have it all figured out yet, but when one state happens, you need to know what we're going to do. Number one, we're going to tell every single Arab in Israel, if you want to stay here and be a citizen of the one state, and you want to be a good, productive part of the nation, we want you here. You're welcome here. Option number two, if you don't want to stay here and you don't want to be a happy participant in the nation of Israel, we'll help relocate you. We'll send you out of the country, and God bless you wherever you go. Number three, if you decide to not be a good, productive, peaceful citizen, and you decide that you want to stay, you better learn how to dodge bullets. That was from a member of the administration. Israel's not playing around anymore, y'all. Israel is not playing around anymore. And so obviously they need our prayers now more than ever with things that are unfolding. But it's a historic time. It's a prophetic time. It's one other thing I want to talk to you about, and Amir can jump in here in just a second, but You've heard the president in the last couple days talking about sending those who are from Gaza to the two countries what we mentioned a bit earlier, Egypt and Jordan. That's not a new idea. The idea to take the between 1 and 2 million people who are in Gaza and spread them out to other Muslim nations has been brewing for a while. The problem is the surrounding Muslim nations don't want them. And somebody needs to ask why. Why don't their Muslim brothers and sisters want them in their Muslim countries? Yeah. It's really important.
You can ask the Lebanese, what do they think about what the Palestinians did to them? And they'll tell you. Right. You can ask the Jordanians what they think about what the Palestinians did to them, and they'll tell you. I mean, everywhere they were stirring the problem, and they were destabilizing the... I mean, Israel had to rescue the monarch in Jordan because Yasser Arafat was about to topple him in Jordan. And that was in 1970, September. And America realized that he's about to be toppled. There was no American force around. America picked up the phone, called Israel, and we had to go and help the one that fought against us 3 years earlier and save his tuchas. And so we did. And he remembered that. And he's the one who warned us 3 years later that Egypt is about to invade on Yom Kippur. He flew his helicopter all the way to warn us, and we never listened to him. So I'm telling you, folks, they know why they don't want them. They know why. And most of the problems that Europe is going through right now with demonstrations and rallies and all of that is by the Palestinians that live there. They know that. Now, I will be very honest with you. I don't hate them. In fact, I really want them to have good life. I want them to have future, to have hope. But it's not going to be if they're day and night plotting to kill me. It's not going to happen. No. Now, if you want to relocate, have good life, take care of your children, take care of their future, you know what Golda Meir said? Golda Meir, our female prime minister, said, peace will come to the Middle East when their mothers will love their children more than they hate the Jews. And to me, to see mothers praising their kids that became suicide bombers, and a mother that had her baby treated in an Israeli hospital, and as she is sitting in an Israeli hospital, she's being asked on TV, what's your prayer for your son that is being saved right now? She said, I want him to be a martyr. Live on TV. That's her greatest honor. So you understand, it starts there. It starts from the very beginning. From the moment they're born, what they're being drinking and eating is hatred and hatred. We found so many Nazi symbols across Gaza. We were shocked. I mean, it's phenomenal. Books and symbols. And it's funny to hear them saying that we're Nazis when they are the ones that admire Hitler so much. Unbelievable.
From an American standpoint, I would just say, because you're a group of people that pay attention to these things, I want to give you something to pay attention to. When the president starts talking about sending Palestinians to Egypt and Jordan, number one, you have to remember he's a deal maker. Number one, how can he make a deal to send them to Egypt, to Jordan, and to at least 8 other close Arab Muslim nations? How could he do that? It's called money.
Leverage.
It's called leverage. And what you could potentially see happen is, hey, Egypt, we give you $1.5 billion a year. Instead of building up your military, which is a concern to Israel, we're going to make sure that this money goes to the relocating of 0.06% of your total population, and we're going to send you 250,000 Palestinians. Take care of them with the money that we're already giving you. Otherwise, the money stops. So, don't be surprised if in the future you hear rumblings like that the president works the art of the deal with the money that's already being allocated to these Muslim nations to start taking care of the Gazans. They need to go.
Yeah. Tariff is also an interesting word. That
the fourth most important word now,
exactly.
Right?
It's
God,
love,
religion,
and tariff. Yes.
That's a direct quote.
Yeah, we just quoted him from yesterday. Again, I admire him for the clarity and the strength, and I would even say courage to say things as they are. Why beating around the bush? Why not telling the truth? Why not finally finding a solution? Why dragging this for so long? Because this, all it brings is more misery and pain, and it will create another generation of people who hate everyone. Yeah. So let's find a better solution. And of course, we are surrounded by a lot of government that are very, very, very corrupt. They don't want to find a solution. They prefer the problem because it serves their interests. Exactly. If you only knew how much money the Egyptian government and elements in the Egyptian army made from smuggling weapons into Gaza. I mean, where do you think Hamas received all their weapons? Not from the sky, not from Israel, not from the Mediterranean. There's only one place, from Egypt. And there is no way Egypt didn't know about it. And the amount of weapon we found, it's Chinese, and it's North Korean, and it's even American. I mean, America would help Egypt with weapon. Egypt would say, well, we have enough of this. We can make money by giving the rest to Hamas. Hamas became a monster because Egypt enabled it. And even on October 7th, that night between October 6th and October 7th, that horrible night, when the head of the Israeli Secret Service was on the phone realizing that at midnight, SIM cards of thousands of terrorists were activated, it was red flags everywhere. The first thing he did, he called his Egyptian counterpart and say, look, you guys are working with Hamas. What's going on here? And he told him, don't worry, it's just another exercise. That's it. And he knew exactly what's going to happen. And so what I'm trying to say is that of all countries, Egypt should pay for the Hamas becoming a monster and for what Gaza looks like today. And of all countries, Egypt is the one that is not having just one wall, 3 walls. So the Gazans, God forbid, will ever, they won't enter into Sinai. It's very sad. But you know what? President Trump is unmasking all of that. He's telling the Egyptian president, I'm sorry, but I don't think you have an option here. You better open the Rafah crossing. You better let them cross, not in, but out. Out. Thousands should cross every day out. Because they already left their encampment, went up north, saw that they have no house, turned around, went back south to the same encampment. How long do you think they can live in tents? 10 years? No. So eventually something will have to happen.
Yeah. You know, we can talk about things from a political or an economic standpoint and things that seem to make sense, military standpoint, but this issue of dividing God's land, we have to look at it from a biblical, spiritual standpoint. So when you search the scriptures, and there's too many to get into tonight, but I do want to draw your attention to Joel chapter 3. When you talk about dividing the land that God calls his land, personally, he takes it personal. When you talk about dividing the land, God's not good with that. He's not good with that. It's not like, oh, you know, okay, well, we need to all get along and split it up. And no. Read Joel chapter 3. And if you read Joel chapter 3, you're going to find out 6 reasons why God is going to judge, listen to me, all the nations. You're going to find 6 reasons in Joel chapter 3 alone why God is going to judge all the nations. In verse 2, what you're going to find out is God saying, they divided my land. This issue of two-state solution, this issue of dividing the land in Joel and Deuteronomy and other places, it's not a small issue with God at all. And so when we talk about dividing up his land, he takes it personal. He's not happy about it, and he will judge every single nation that is for dividing the land. So on our part, as people who are biblically literate, we want to make sure that we stand with what the scriptures say. We're not for a two-state solution in Israel as the world means it. We're not for it at all. We're not for dividing God's land up at all. We're not for it. Not just from economic or military, but for biblical theological reasons. We're not going to carve up God's land, okay? Now, that's worth something. I do want to take just a minute to give you some things that will at least cause you to scratch your head. When the United States of America has pressured Israel to divide the land, to succumb to the pressure of a two-state solution, you cannot look at what happened to our nation within days of us pressuring Israel and look at it as coincidence. So 5 things real quick to get your attention. March 22nd, 1979, US President Jimmy Carter did not side with Israel and veto UN Resolution 446, claiming that Israel illegally occupied territory since the '67 war. 4 days later, the Egypt-Israel peace treaty was signed in Washington when Israel gave up the land. Then on the 28th, March 28th, a total of 6 days later, the worst nuclear power plant disaster in US history hit. Does anybody remember 3 Mile Island? Yeah, that was right after we pressured Israel to carve up God's land. Do what you want with that one. October 30th, 1991, President George H.W. Bush opened the Madrid Peace Conference, which brought Israelis and Palestinians together to negotiate. Bush told Israel that, quote, territorial compromise is essential for peace. In other words, chop up the land. The next day, on October 31st, 1991, at President Bush's home in Kennebunkport, Maine, Hurricane Bob hit. The North Atlantic storm struck with waves that were 3 stories high and all but destroyed his personal house.
I'm from sales, not from management. Oh.
August 1992, the Middle East Peace Conference moved to Washington, D.C. August 16th, Hurricane Andrew made landfall in Florida, causing $30 billion in damage. It was the worst natural disaster up to that point in all of U.S. history. On the same day that Hurricane Andrew was formed in the Caribbean, was the exact same day we're pressuring Israel one more time. And what happens? Florida gets wiped out. Anybody remember Hurricane Andrew? There was nothing like it at that time, the worst ever in American history. August 2005, President George W. Bush convinced Israel's Prime Minister Ariel Sharon to remove 9,000 Jews from Gaza, turning it over entirely to the Palestinians. He did that. On August 23, 2005, President Bush praised Sharon for claiming the Palestinians should have their own state, and that precise day, anybody remember what happened? Hurricane Katrina originated over the Bahamas, making landfall as a Category 3 hurricane on August 29th in southeast Louisiana, New Orleans, lasting until August 31st. It doesn't go good for America when we pressure Israel to carve up God's land. If you can read those things and go, oh, that's all just coincidence, you have either more faith than me or more stupidity than me. I'm not sure which one. You can't look at it and just go, it's coincidence. So just some things to think about. From a spiritual standpoint, from a supernatural standpoint.
And also from experience now. That's it, we tried it.
Yeah.
All right, assuming that none of this happened. But we tried it.
Didn't work.
Gaza was 100% in the hands of the Palestinians. 100%. And everybody says open air prison. That's baloney. You need to see footage of Gaza before the war. I'm telling you, we tried it and it blew up right at our face. So why thinking that it's trying it again will give us different results when it's not? So I'm just saying, based on the Word of God, based on history, and based on experience, we should not do the same mistake again. And again, America, you see, people ask me, where's America in Bible prophecy? So first of all, most of the countries, apart from Israel, most of the countries that are mentioned in the Bible in relations to Israel are not mentioned in good light. Okay? And so probably you don't want your name there. But I will also tell you that God had used America in several occasions. Because Bible prophecy has never been about nations and the way they interact between each other. It's about nations and the way they interact with Israel.
That's right.
Israel is the center of Bible prophecy. And so you judge how God is going to deal and treat that nation based on what it is doing with Israel. And I can tell you that in 1948, against the will of the State Department and the Secretary of State of that time, President Truman recognized the newborn state of Israel, was the first world leader to recognize 8 minutes after we declared statehood, and he already recognized it. That was Harry Truman. 1973, President Nixon, when he got a phone call from Golda Meir saying we're about to, if America is not going to help us, Israel won't exist in a couple of days. President Nixon said, Golda, my mom, when I grew up, he was a Quaker. My mom taught me Bible stories. And one time, and she taught me one of the stories, she said, Richard, I want you to know that if you ever get to a point where you can help save the Jewish people, I want you to promise me that you are going to do that. And then Richard Nixon, on the phone with Golda Meir, is saying, now I know why I became president of the United States. He hung up the phone, picked up the phone and called his Secretary of Defense, and the largest airlift of armaments since World War II took place within the next 72 hours, and that tipped everything, and we all know Israel survived. Now, of course, God was there, but he used America. And in 2020, finally America under President Trump did 4 things. 1, acknowledging that Iran is bluffing the whole world and pulled out of the Iran deal. 2, acknowledging that Israel's settlements on the Golan Heights are legal and the Golan Heights is indeed Israeli sovereign territory. 3, acknowledging that the Israeli settlements in Judea and Samaria are legal. And 4, moving the embassy of the United States of America to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
No president in the history of America ever did those things. And then in 2021, from January 2021, we entered into a period that is more crazy than anything we've ever seen. We've never seen anything like that. When it's day, they call it night. When it's night, they call it day. And because of this previous administration's policy, the war is still going on. Make no mistake, we could have finished with Hamas 5 months after we started the war, not a year and 5 months. You understand that the only element in the world that stopped us from destroying Hamas was the United States of America during President Biden's administration. Not only that, we are the only country on planet Earth that provides its enemy food in order to survive. We're the only country that is providing Nutella, pistachio, and cigarettes, lest they don't have Nutella for breakfast or cigarettes to smoke. Telling the world this is humanitarian aid. And I don't want to mention what other things you guys paid for in order for them to use as of the last 24 hours. Which they use, by the way, in order to carry bombs into Israeli territories. Because one thing for sure, they did not stop bringing babies to the world. Do you understand the level? I don't even think it's ignorance. I think it's evil.
Absolutely.
I think it's evil. So, look, my prayer is that the President of the United States will be surrounded by the right people that will give him the right advices, and that he will not be afraid to go forward and execute all of these things, and he will understand, A, that God is with him, and B, that we already tried everything else and we know the outcome. Yeah. And so that's and Netanyahu is the first world leader to come and to an official visit to the White House in the second presidency of Donald Trump is Benjamin Netanyahu. And my prayer is that to next week's meeting on Monday, I think, my prayer is that next week's meeting will be a meeting that will coordinate the most important collaboration between America and Israel ever. In that all of us will see the results thereof not too far after it. Because you need to understand something about Iran. That's the biggest problem. By the way, not the Iranian people. You should understand something. We are in love with the Iranian people. Israelis and the Iranians are very good friends. But the Ayatollahs and what we call the Islamic Republic of Iran, which is not representing most of the Iranians anyway, that's the problem. And I need you to know that they are weeks away from nuclear bomb. See, for years, we tried to stop them from acquiring the components. It's like you're about to bake a cake. It takes you time to go and buy all the products. But then once you have all the products, all it takes is 10 minutes to mix them and then put them for 45 minutes in the oven, and that's it. And they're at the point where they already have all the products. The only thing they wait for is the decision to bake the cake. And once they take that decision, in 3 weeks they have it, because they have the products. We cannot afford living in the Middle East with Iran having nuclear bomb. No one can afford that, not only us.
The whole world.
The whole world and the Middle East. I mean, Saudi Arabia and the UAE and all the countries around. No one. It's the biggest destabilizer in the Middle East and the whole world. But the Bible says that Iran is going to come against Israel once again, but not alone and not counting and banking on its own proxies, which we already see that they're dissolving. But it's going to join Russia and Turkey. And that's the Ezekiel war. So I'm not a prophet. I come from a non-profit organization. But I can tell you that I don't think the Iranian regime will be toppled on one hand, but on the other hand, I don't think they'll reach a nuclear weapon. Because if you do, you don't need to join Russia or Turkey. No one is going to touch you anyway, okay? So my prediction, based on these two assumptions that are on, from the Bible, is that they're going to get hit, and they're going to wait for the moment that America is weak, and that they can join Russia and Turkey to come against Israel. And now comes maybe the brightest thing in this whole dark story. I believe that the number one thing that will cause America to almost dissolve is the rapture of the church. I don't need the clapping. I want to be out of here. First, I want a new body, because this tent is not for me. I want a building, and I want to be in the presence of the Lord whenever He comes to take us and meet with us in the clouds. Until then, we are up for an unbelievable ride on a roller coaster. Emotional roller coaster, physical roller coaster. It's going to be amazing. But remember, Jesus is coming soon.
Amen.
All right.
Amir, here's what I want you to do. I'm going to talk for just a minute about some things in Syria that the people need to know about. And then while we're talking about that real quick, pick some questions to answer that some people sent in. Again, because you all are students and you pay attention to world affairs, there's something I want to put on your radar as it relates to Syria. There is an amazing bright spot happening in Syria that most of the world doesn't know anything about. And that bright spot is what originally was called the AANES, the Autonomous Administration of North and East Syria. Now it's called the Democratic Autonomous Administration of North and East Syria. Listen to this, think about this. In Syria, in the Middle East, there is an autonomous region. It is in the northern strip of Syria. It borders Turkey in the north. In the Middle East, in a predominantly Muslim country, there are people who have set up an autonomous government there. It's made up equally of Muslims, of Christians, and of Yazidis. Equal parts. Also equal parts of men and women. That's who's running the Autonomous Administration of North and East Syria. Half men, half women, and equally divided between Yazidis, Christians, and Muslims. They all get along wonderfully. They're doing fantastic. It is like this jewel that's in Syria that most people don't even know about, but it is a jewel. It is a bright spot. It is something beautiful that's happening in the midst of all of this darkness. So I would encourage you just to pay attention to what's happening with the AANES or the DAANES. Watch and see what's happening. They are defending freedom. You can worship there in the AANES. Whatever your religion is, worship. If you want to convert from one religion to the next, it's okay to convert. There's total equality between men and women, between economic and national backgrounds, total equality across the board for everybody. It's happening right now in the Middle East. Most of us don't know about it. You need to pay attention to it. I had the privilege of being there 4 years ago, talking to all the leaders, the military leaders. I watched it. I stood in the city square in Raqqa, where ISIS only 18 months earlier were cutting people's heads off and sticking their heads in the city square. I stood there in the midst of a free Raqqa because of the AANES doing battle and winning wars together, Yazidis, Christians, and Muslims working together. Pay attention to the AANES. It's going to play a spot in what happens in Syria in the future. I guarantee it.
So, the first question is, the May 7 to 17 Bible Experience Tour put up by Behold Israel, will Amir be part of the tour? I am not always with the tours, but I come to teach in several locations and answer questions also. So, not all the time, but I will be there. Will the Antichrist be of Jewish descent, another nationality, and will he be responsible for building the third temple? That's well, we don't have 5 hours, but... I will tell you, first of all, that the building of the temple is something that the Jewish people are going to do. Definitely, they need approval from a world leader in order to do something that potentially could bring World War III or IV, depends when. But I will tell you that, you know, the Jewish people don't look at the Messiah as a God. And so obviously, when they will have the wrong choice, the wrong pick, it will be a man. And obviously him bringing peace, prosperity, and allow them to build a temple will definitely help them to see him, or in him, messianic components that are essential for them to move to a level of worshiping God for the first time in 2,000 years from a temple in Jerusalem. For a temple to be built on Temple Mount in Jerusalem, you cannot have Islam as a major religion that is threatening the world. Islam has to come to a point where it is defeated and diluted. And what am I trying to say? In the Ezekiel war of Ezekiel 38 and 39, although Russia, from economic reasons, will lead it, it will be the Turkish and the Persian, the Iranians, that will come from their own reasons. And of course, they are under their auspices is the radical Muslim groups. And once they are defeated, I believe that hundreds of millions of Muslims will have to say, okay, it's not working. And radical Islam is not working. And what is Islam anyway? And when the Antichrist is going to rise from what I believe Western Europe is today, from where the Roman Empire came to destroy the Second Temple, I believe that he will somehow introduce a new world religion that will not necessarily make you think that you're giving up everything else, but it will be Christless one, obviously, because the worship is a worship of the dragon, it's the worship of Satan, but under many, many different
facades, masks.
Exactly,
yeah.
Exactly. And so, and when that happens, why not having a spiritual awakening in the Middle East in the midst of a victory that God will win for Israel in Ezekiel 38? And so there will be messianic aspirations in Israel, and in the midst of the messianic aspirations, after God won the war for them, they'll actually vote for the wrong person as if he's the Messiah, because he's offering them something that nobody ever offered before, a temple to be built and worship to be resumed there. But it's the same person who will then, 3.5 years later, stop the sacrifice, enter the temple, and say, I am God, worship me. And at this point, there will be the Jewish people that will say, no, you're not, and they'll have to flee, as Jesus said, and those that will receive the mark of the beast. And that's what's going to happen. So it doesn't have to be a Jewish person. If you read Revelation, the description of the Antichrist is not exactly a description of a Jewish person per se. But it has to be a powerful world leader that comes out of the sea, which is out of nowhere. It's not someone we know. and he's going to be receiving his stamp of approval from a religious person, a religious leader that comes from the land, who might be even the Pope, God knows, we don't know who is going to be the false prophet. And these two are going to run the show. And they will be thrown to the lake of fire upon the return of Jesus with us. So that's the story of that one. Man, I need a new body. Do you want to ask the next one? Yeah, please do.
Just for time's sake to help
Yes,
here.
please.
How about this one? This is easy.
Okay.
Is America Mystery Babylon?
No, you have to understand something. Mystery Babylon appears at the very end of the book of Revelation after there has been already a complete reshuffling in world powers. Everything you know is going to change. There will be, for a short time, the government of the whole world will be given to 10 kings that later on will relinquish their power back to the Antichrist. Everything you know now is not going to be it anymore. Things will change. So, love America. Pray for America. And pray that America will fulfill its destiny when it comes to Israel and when it's come to Bible prophecy. But it's not like America is responsible for all the world's problems, and therefore America is Mystery Babylon. No, trust me, it's a bigger system that is Mystery Babylon. And it's a bigger system that is going to be destroyed. And in a sense, the whole world is going to be destroyed. And God will make an interesting upgrade to planet Earth for 1,000 years so we can live here when Jesus comes with us. But it's not yet that good to be the eternal residence of all of us. Amen. So at the end of the 1,000 years millennial kingdom, he will make all things new. New heavens, new earth, and the new Jerusalem. So I will be very careful pointing my finger at America as Mystery Babylon. Okay? Good.
Will the coalition of nations coming against Israel in Ezekiel 38 war, will the nations be destroyed or just those armies from those nations?
The victory is on the mountains of Israel. Why would God go and destroy the Iranian people that never sent the military to come against us anyway? And if the victory is on the mountains of Israel, that means it's the military that is destroyed, and they're going to be powerless back there. But I don't think you have to destroy all of the Iranian people for the shenanigans of their government and their military. You understand that? So God will destroy them on the mountains of Israel in a supernatural way. So it's not like the Bible says, and God is going to destroy them there. And that's why all that we want, by the way, is that we will be safe and that God will protect us. Destroying other nations wherever they are is nothing we are looking for. We don't need it. We don't want it. You have to understand, we don't want to invade any country. We don't need any country. All we want is that they will leave us alone. This is why when we created our military, we named it IDF, Israel Defense Forces. We defend ourselves. Now, if you're plotting there, we'll go and destroy you there. But I don't need Tehran. I don't need Damascus or Cairo. Just leave me alone. Don't invade my country and try to destroy me and take my capital, Jerusalem.
Personal question.
Please.
Your conversion. What kind of challenges did
There is no conversion when it comes. Okay, I'll tell you this. Listen.
Your fulfillment.
You need to understand, the question was not exactly that. The question was your switching side. Am I right? Or what was it? Read it again.
I don't want to say you were wrong.
Okay.
I'm sorry that the middle of my sentence got in the way of the
So,
beginning of yours.
just curious, it says this, just curious if Amir struggled at all switching to Christianity. No one switches to Christianity. No one. You don't switch. It's not either or. I remember the first time I came to the Philippines to teach, somebody met me in the street and he said, "So are you Catholic or born again?" I'm like, "Are these your two options here?" "Oh, of course." There is no church that is not made of born again. Born again is the only church.
Amen.
And so I can be a Jew and still be born again. You understand that? So I did not switch to Christianity. I am a born-again, Spirit-filled Jew. And by the way, no one can be born a Christian. No one in the history of planet Earth has ever been born a Christian. What are you talking about, Willis? Well, if your birth certificate says that you are a Christian by birth, that's wrong. You were born a sinner. To be born again, you need to be born again. It doesn't matter you're born Hindu, Jew, Muslim, Catholic, Orthodox, whatever. You have to be born again. And the first person that ever heard these two words, to be born again, was actually a Jew in John 3:3, Nicodemus. So my point is that Jesus never told Nicodemus, switch to Christianity. He told a Jew, you must be born again. How about that? You see, I read the question.
I just want to say that it wasn't my question. Okay, very practically, last question. Last question. What can we do to best support Israel?
Okay. So I'm going to say this. The problem of a lot of Christians is that they don't know the Bible. And because they don't know the Bible, they can call themselves Christians and yet switch to the anti-Israel camp because they don't know the Bible. They can be very successful and very, very famous people on the media, and yet they can switch to be anti-Israel and still call themselves Christians. And it is because they don't know the Bible. And so my mission is to educate people so they can, with the scriptures, in order for them to understand why. And once you understand why, it's easier for you to pray. It's easier for you to support in a more practical way. But first you have to understand why. First you have to understand what is it that God says that you need to do. Because I can tell you 100 times to do this, this, and this, but if it's not me. It's not about what I think you need to do. And so biblical illiteracy is the epitome of Christianity nowadays. And therefore, you see a lot of weird things. Some of them are originating even from Franklin, Tennessee. Yes. Yes. I'm sorry. What? Speak truth. Yes. Am I right? Yes. Thank you. And so I'll do whatever I can to educate people, but I think that if you already know your Bible, now you know you need to pray and you need to help. God will tell you how to help, but He will only tell you if you pray. And so you can't run away from the only way to communicate with Him. This is the only way for you to understand what your personal role is. Every single one of you that came this evening, you're in trouble. Because you cannot run away from the fact that God is looking at you as people that don't have an excuse anymore. You've heard it. So go back to the Bible, read, and then He will tell you how to support and how to be of practical help. But biblical knowledge and understanding can only come from being with the Word, being in the Word, and listening to the Lord. And if you think you can skip all these things and yet be effective, kiss that thought goodbye. Daniel knew exactly what he needs to do only when he was praying to the Lord, when he was in the Word. Daniel read the book of Jeremiah. Isn't that amazing? One of the people in the Bible read one of the books of the Bible. He read the book of Jeremiah and knew exactly that Israel must come back to the land. And he was praying. And the Lord sent the angel and said, from the moment you began to pray, I was already sent to tell you, you're greatly beloved. We have some interesting reputation already in heaven while we're still here. And all that God wants is to spend time with us so we can listen to what He has, so we can get and receive an understanding of the times and the seasons. And as we do that, we then understand also exactly what we need to do. And so you'll find your way of how to help. But first you need to know why.
Amen. Pastor Mike Galay, could you all make him feel welcome here tonight? Mike is director of Behold Israel, and he's going to close us in prayer and then just make some final announcements. Thank you all for being here tonight. Can we thank Amir for being with us here tonight?
All right, now the fun times start. They're going to go out and they're going to be available, both of them, at the reception. If you're interested in that, the door is right through there. If you want to just go straight to the parking lot, hang out, or leave, that's the door that you go through. There were over 1,500 people watching this live stream. There was ministry going on. Pierre, if you're watching, we did pray for you. Just so you know, there was a guy that asked for prayer. If you are interested to help the ministry, I want you to watch this few-second video. But before they play it, have you ever asked the question, what tools do you have to give to that woke person on a campus? What would you say to somebody that says Israel has no right to the land? Yes, you can sit down. This will take maybe 2 more minutes of your time. How do you handle this whole theory of a lot of the things they were speaking about, that there should be a 2-state solution? What Bible verses exist? How can we arm you? Well, funny you should ask. We made a book, a little pamphlet really, to put into your toolkit. Play that video now. Oh, yeah. Scan the QR code. If you scan that QR code right now and you pre-purchase that before the actual release date, what you are doing is you are triggering a cauliflower effect of other businesses and bookstores buying this to sell it, which then reaches more non-believers, universities, governments around the world. For $7, you pre-buy this book, and it triggers a cauliflower effect of outreach. That's the QR code. It'll take you to Amazon.com. Enough infomercials from me. I want to thank you on behalf of Behold Israel to One Church Home. Thank you for hosting. Thank you to ASI for being long-term friends, brothers, and family. Omar, it's good to see you again. And all of our friends and family from Behold Israel, let's close in prayer. Yivarech Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yechunecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha. Shalom. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. And may his countenance be upon you and give you peace. We are dismissed. Go about your evening with confidence that the Lord is on the throne. Amen and amen.